We are going to be covering today the very important topic of vibrato and how it plays into your beautiful sound. Beautiful sound is a combination, in my opinion, of 5 different variables. And these 5 different variables are listed in my vibrato handout, which you will have access to. This acronym is VAPPS. And I talk about this in my violin sound production playlist, my list of tutorials on YouTube. Vibrato, angle of bow, pressure of the bow, point of contact of the bow, and speed of the bow. When we manipulate all 5 of these variables, then we can create a very wide palette of sound. I have trouble with tightening my left hand, especially when I get nervous. So it's important for me to practice some of these tips, number 1 all the way to number 5 on my handout, okay? So let's take a look at the first one. So let's just say we're on a D, just so that you're able to experience the difference between a tight left hand and a relaxed left hand. I would like for all of us to just play maybe one note, and it doesn't matter what note it is. I'm just going to start on a D. Okay, I want you to intentionally, you see my thumb, intentionally squeeze and harden like a statue, like a rock, your thumbs. Intentionally do it right now and try to vibrate. I'm squeezing. You can hear my sound. Okay, now let me turn around and show you the thumb. Instead of squeezing, now we're going to play the game of relaxation. Can we now make it into a marshmallow? And if you want, you can do this, which I've shown on several of my tutorials. Wiggle it up and down the fingerboard just to encourage and remind your thumb to be soft. Now try to vibrate. If you want to see the difference, tighten again and try to vibrate. Loosen, tighten. Okay, does everyone see the difference? It's quite apparent, right? Okay, that's a very, very easy tip. When you're practicing your scales, this is when I would implement this tip. So simple exercise is loosen the thumb. You can see my thumb wiggling. I'll show you the other side. I'll go down a D major scale. Okay, so that's the first tip that I have for you. So easy, right? Everyone think that's okay? Yeah? Raise your hand. You're type of yes, thank you. Okay, good. Now, the next thing about tension in the left hand. Thank you for that. Yes, thank you, T. Lewis. The next thing, tip number 2 about loosening your left hand is thinking space inside each finger knuckle. Laurence, you have a question? Do you want to type it in the chat? I don't know if I can unmute someone. Yeah, if you have a question, type it in the chat so that I can keep my focus, okay? Because I only have an hour. I don't have very much time. So the next thing that we can think about is if you imagine, just be creative in your imagination that the knuckle that we are looking for is this last joint here in each digit, okay? This is what we call the distal joint. This is one of the most important joints in the finger to create a very flexible and beautiful oscillation or amplitude in your vibrato. So in order to get that unstiffened, I'm making up words as I go here, you can imagine that there's space inside that knuckle in particular and all the other knuckles in particular. So if you imagine the space, you'll notice that the finger will start to soften. Okay, I'm missing some messages here in the chat. Okay, yes, I see some. Okay, yeah, I won't be able to cover those until the very end. Questions at the very end, okay? Let me just go through the 12 points. So right now I'm on a 4th finger. So right now, this last distal joint, I'm just trying to, I'm actually observing that it's quite tight right now. But if I imagine that there's imaginary empty space, imagine an atom, you know, the nucleus, and the electrons around the nucleus. You know most of an atom is empty space. We can actually picture that. The knuckle is just empty space. And now you can see that there is movement and flexibility in that last joint. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Maybe type a yes in the chat. Terry says no. Okay. What I'm trying to get it away from is a stiffening in any joint. So let's say this is the fourth finger. If your hand is tight, like this, tight. Right now I'm squeezing my thumb and squeezing my hand. Okay. If it's tight, then I want to encourage relaxation in the hand. Okay, Terry, thank you. I see you're nodding. Thank you. So I want to encourage a relaxation by using images that help encourage the fingers and the knuckles and the muscles to regain some mobility. The mobility can be accessed through a shortcut, which I call the secret weapon, the right brain. The right brain creates images or concepts. For me, if I think of empty space inside the knuckle, then I don't have to tighten it, make it like a, let's say, a hard tree trunk. It becomes more like a cloud, if that makes sense. Yeah. So what we're doing is we're using our imagination and imagining the fingers are as what's the word? Vaporous, like a cloud. Okay. So this is one tip that we can incorporate into our mental image of what our finger is doing. So even if you're on a scale, well, let's just say, let's play a real piece here. Sibelius. So right now on this third finger, this joint here, the last joint, if I stiffen it, okay, this is okay, but if I allow this image of cloud or air or space into that knuckle, I can get quite a lot more amplitude. It becomes wider, especially if I want a rich vibrato, especially in this concerto. Tightness will give me a tight vibrato. Tight. Which is fine if I want that, but if I want something wider, then I will encourage my finger to get a little more mobility in that last joint. And if space and air is what is necessary, then I will think that. There, I'm feeling like there's empty space inside all of my knuckles. Even as far as to think of space inside these base knuckles, even if you want to think space inside all of your joints, the wrist, the elbow, even in the glenohumeral joint inside here in the armpit. Okay, this is what we're going to get into number 3, number 4, and number 5. Tips number 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so tip number 3 to help encourage relaxation in the hand for vibrato. Remember, a tight hand will give you a tight vibrato. These are all tips to help soften your hand, especially when we're under pressure and nervous when we're playing. This is one that I learned from my teacher, Erica Rom, during my doctorate. Thinking your palm, the inside of your palm becomes soft, right? Supple. So again, if you want to experiment with me, tighten your palm and try to vibrate. Tighten. It's possible. It's possible, but not very easy. So let's think of the palm softening. Like, I like to think of frozen chicken defrosting into, yeah, you know, right? Chicken breast. You know when it's floppy on your cutting board? Yes, that's what we're thinking of. So soft chicken breast right through here. Try it with me if you like. Snow melting. Susan, thank you so much. David asks, is this arm or wrist vibrato? Okay, I know I have that popular question. Let me address that later. Well, okay. Thank you, Susan. It is both. Okay, fine. I will address this question about arm versus wrist vibrato. I'll show you a totally pure wrist vibrato. Okay, if I cut my arm off here. Okay, you know Bugs Bunny and the glove? And the glove goes like this. Yeah. So that's what I think wrist vibrato. It's just this. Now, the contention that I have with just wrist vibrato is that it is part of our wrist, is part of our vibrato palette, part of our vibrato spectrum, but we're missing out on the entire arm structure. This is why I don't necessarily distinguish wrist vibrato from arm vibrato. if it was a pure arm vibrato, let me see if I can do this. Some people are very good at arm vibrato. Let me try arm vibrato. I want you to see if you can see a difference. This is a little bit more stationary here. Wrist vibrato was kind of like Bugs Bunny's glove a little bit. And this part was not moving in wrist. Okay, but in arm vibrato, it goes further into the rest of the arm. What both types of vibrato have in common is the flexibility of this last joint, distal joint. Both of these vibratos need that flexibility. So there's the 7 vibrato exercises that I have on my YouTube channel will address that last joint. Whether you do a wrist vibrato or an arm vibrato, that is the most important thing to develop, that flexibility of that last joint. Now, the reason why I don't like to distinguish between the two is because I think it's a spectrum, and Susan is correct. I think that it's important that we don't cut off the arm. What I mean by cutting off the arm is that you just vibrate from this point up, and you ignore the rest of your arm, because the arm, your hand is sitting on top of the wrist, and the wrist is attached to your arm all the way into your shoulder blade. Now, if you're vibrating just like this, like Bugs Bunny, you're ignoring that you have this whole, even as far back as your pectoral muscles and your back, to help you with the range of your vibrato. So if we're going back to, well, let's try, someone had mentioned Mendelssohn Violin Concerto. So, or if we free up, what I'm trying to do is free up tip number 5. Let me get into tip number 4 first. Tip number 4, okay, we're going to stay in the hand first before I go to tip number 5. Tip number 4 is to create this idea that there is energy flowing between your thumb and the finger that is vibrating. So in this case, it's 1. So again, it's another way to get rid of excess squeezing. If we squeeze, we're stopping energy from flowing. Does that make sense? Yes. Yeah, it makes sense that if we squeeze, you cut off flow of energy. And cutting off the flow of energy will squeeze your vibrato. And when you squeeze your vibrato, it affects your sound. Remember, this workshop is about how we can create beautiful sound by freeing up our vibrato. So if we think of the energy flowing between your thumb, then I call this the golden horseshoe. So the tip of your thumb, imagine this golden energy going from the tip of your thumb down the horseshoe and into the finger that's vibrating. Now, you want to keep that energy alive, like it's an electric energy. If you cut the energy flow, we cut the flow of our vibrato and therefore limit our sound. So we can try this. This is another way of saying tip number 1, maintaining a soft thumb. If I think of a golden horseshoe of energy that is alive inside the hand, from the thumb, so back here, all the way to this 1. Oh, good, Susan, you like that. Thank you, Susan. I really appreciate that. You can practice the scale with that in mind. Switching fingers. Do I still have the energy? The golden horseshoe of energy between this finger and the thumb. So it literally, to me, it's kind of like I'm a superhero and I go, woo, I have a golden light. You know, you watch your Netflix movies and you see this kind of gold animation on the people's hands. I become a superhero, okay? This is one way that I can actually prevent my hand from getting tight when I'm playing, okay? Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. I don't see everybody. I'm going to see if I can see more people. Okay, great. So now we're going to move into tip number 5. This is also about making sure that we're relaxed. Oh, good. I see some more yeses coming in the chat. Thank you. Thank you, Donnie. Thank you, Rhonda. Shake, hello. Contact point, Daniel Bejarano. What's the contact point of your thumb? Contact point. Good question. Since we're talking about relaxation of the thumb, you do not want a thumb that's too high. You see how I'm choking into the cradle. Sorry, cradle. You do not want to choke. Yeah. If you choke, then I won't be able to get a very good amplitude on the vibrato. Okay. Oh, thank you, Margie. You love that circuit. Thank you. Okay, now too low. I mean, sometimes you will need a thumb that's low, especially if you're up high, or if you need to get a awkward double stop or triple stop. See how low my thumb can be. The thumb is a good question. It's movable. It's malleable. It's movable. It needs to be democratic. Okay, it's not totalitarian. It's not authoritarian. It's not immovable. It's not stubborn. The thumb needs to be participating in the hand. Yes, we do have opposable thumbs to our fingers, meaning that we do need a counter pressure on the fingerboard. I'm not saying you will never squeeze. I don't want to use the word squeeze, but I will have to. I'm not saying you will never squeeze the thumb, because sometimes you will as a violinist. But I want all of us to be aware of when we over squeeze. That can kill our vibrato, which then can kill our sound. I will go even as far as sharing a friend's advice that this muscle here can play a role in your sound, because this is, she called this raw chicken. If you keep that muscle like raw chicken, you will notice your sound becoming a little bit more supple. And this is going back to tip number 1 about keeping a soft thumb. Okay, let's move on to tip number 5. Keep the chest, shoulder area, and neck relaxed and open. Okay, so this is relating to the question of arm and wrist vibrato, even if you are vibrating in a wrist fashion. Okay, so I'm trying to do a wrist vibrato without looking like I'm a student violinist. Let's see. There we go. A little bit better. Okay, that's kind of a wrist vibrato. But the thing is, right now, I can tell, you can't tell, but I can tell while I'm doing that, this deltoid, the anterior deltoid, is not participating in the vibrato. It's holding. Now, if I take tip number 5, keep chest, shoulder, and neck relaxed and open, then I will consciously soften as much as I can. Tony, thank you for pointing to your deltoid. I can see you. Thank you. Yeah. So this is great. While I do that D, I'm going to check in with that anterior delta. You see me wiggling my shoulder? I hope you can see that. So as I vibrate, I can sense that this raising of my shoulder comes from the levator scapula. I lift my shoulder. If I ask that muscle to relax, that's what I mean by having that part of my body relaxed. Try a vibrato with this in mind. And that way I feel like this feels like, I like to think of water flowing down the earlobe, down my neck, down my shoulder, down my bicep, and into my palm. You can then think of your energy circuit not just limited between your thumb and your vibrating fingers, but you can think of the energy circuit coming all the way from your neck down into your hand. So now it becomes this nice large energy loop, which makes the body a little bit more free. So therefore, this wrist kind of quote unquote wrist vibrato is very limited. Now, I'm going to think about all the way to the shoulder up here and the neck. Okay, so watch now. I hope you can see my shoulder. Oh, you can't see it, can you? Okay, this is tight. Let me show tight. You can even see the muscle, right? Tight. I'll show my vibrato. Okay, tight. Now, if I take tip number 5, keep the chest, shoulder, and neck relaxed. This is tight. Now I'm going to relax it. Tight. Relaxed. Tight. Relaxed. Okay? You may not notice a huge difference in sound yet, but as you continue to experiment, you will start to feel the difference. Joseph and Jennifer, I can see you going at it. Yay! Thank you. Yay! I love it. Okay. Susan can hear it. Susan, you're the best. Everything I say, Susan agrees with. Yes, I love you, Susan. Okay. Okay, that muscle between thumb and index finger is always tight. I believe that's the thenar muscle is always tight when fast, especially separate by how to solve. Okay, this is, again, you're going to look at tip number 1, softening your thumb and practicing it slowly so that you can practice something very slowly, body awareness and control of your muscles. If you have an awareness of it in your brain can strengthen the neural signal to that muscle to stop turning it on. If I asked you to turn on your fist, like squeeze your fist, and then ask you to unsqueeze your fist, relax your fist, I bet you can. It just takes a little bit of practice and coordination, okay? All right. Now, let's keep going because we have limited time, only half an hour. Now, I can answer some questions if I have time left, okay? So now, this is a really good one for sound. Tip number 6 is important for the type of sound that you want in the particular repertoire you're playing. For example, some people have asked me, what about Bach double concerto? Now that was Tony, yeah? Tony, Talia Tony? Tony. Versus Sarah, hello, Sarah Pinkovich, you asked about Lalo Sinfonie Espagnole, okay? These are two very, very, very different pieces in the repertoire. One is Baroque and one is Romantic. So in order to give yourself the most range of your vibrato palette, which is going to feed into the color of your sound, we have to look at this variable of how much flesh do you put on the string, on the fingerboard. You can go really pointed on the tips of your finger. Let me show you on this side. If you eat, oh, I have to do a contortion here. But if I go, you see how square my fingers are? Okay, square versus flat fingered. Okay, square will mean that my fingers are on the tip. Okay, very tip. When we want something a little, let's say, skinnier, thinner, then we choose very skinny tip. Maybe double concerto was a little thinner. Okay, so that's an example of being on the tip when you want a little thinner, okay, more delicate sound. Now, if you want to get into something like Sinfonie Espagnole, okay, which is juicy on the E string and the D string, then we can look at fleshing out the finger so it's a little flatter. Now, let's take a look at my third finger. I'm actually really flat. Can everyone see how much flesh, how much fat of the finger is plopping right over the G string? Very flat versus this. When I want a fleshy, or when I want a richer sound, then I vary the surface area of my finger. This is tip number 6, okay? So when you want a fatter sound, consider using more flesh on your finger. We can even apply it to, Mendelssohn concerto. Even this is there, really square tip versus this. Let me show you the other side. Tip, tip, tip. Flat, flat, flat. Does everyone hear the difference? Yeah? Let me do that one more time. Tip. Flat. Yes, people hear the difference. Thank you so much. Ching and T. Lewis. Does that make sense? Varying the surface area of how much flesh you're using on the string and on the fingerboard. Great. I'm glad people can hear that. That's tip number 6. Okay, let's moving on. Tip number 7. Now, this is actually the most important element of developing your vibrato and developing your sound, is listening. Do not underestimate how much your listening skills can improve your sound and improve your vibrato. What I mean by this is I've heard people come to my VIP classes and they will play something like Mozart A Major Violin Concerto. What I'm trying to demonstrate is that there's one amplitude, one speed, one width, one speed, no variation, no nuance. It tells me that they have worked on the vibrato. Great. They've got the mechanics of the vibrato. Great. They've probably worked on soft thumb, energy circuit, loose hand, loose wrist and shoulder and chest. That's all great. But the most important thing to develop that sound is to listen. What does that concerto need? Does it need that much vibrato? For example, someone, Talia Tony, I think it's Tony, you asked about Bach double violin concerto. Does it need that much vibrato? Does it need a wide amplitude? It does not. I think it sounds bad, right? So listening and being very discerning about how much and when you use this color. Now, vibrato is basically a spice that you can add to your sound. It's like when you're cooking a dish, you are the chef. You have a bland plate of, I don't know, pasta. What spices are you going to add and in what degree? If we want something intense, that's very intense. That's a very spicy, picante dish, right? Or we can relax it. For example, Brahms' Second Symphony, First Violin Excerpt. So I played this for a coach, and they said, Lynn, relax your vibrato. So I'm listening. The tip number 7 is about listening. How much vibrato does this passage need? It doesn't need this. It's too much. Relax. Now you see what I'm doing. I'm going into tip number 8. Tip number 8 is practicing continuous vibrato. So I'm trying to get this excerpt to sing without stopping from my vibrato. That's a discontinuous vibrato. Could everyone hear that? So practicing continuous vibrato, I have a tutorial, a very short and quick and efficient tutorial on my YouTube vibrato playlist on practicing continuous vibrato. You can see when I did here. This is for Chris. Chris, who's in one of my students in my VIP coaching program. You will see that I'm putting down both fingers as a double stop. This is how you can start practicing continuous vibrato, finding your double stops and encouraging the vibrato between the two. Here's an octave you can practice. Here's a sixth you can practice. I'll show you the other side. Continuous. So that gives me much more capability of sustaining a legato phrase. When we want to create a beautiful sound in a long melodic line, continuous vibrato will be very important to practice. I practice that in my scales and arpeggios and in passages like this. Okay, continuous vibrato. Practicing your vibrato, all of the tips above. Let me recap. The first 5 tips were about relaxing joint, thumb, inside the knuckles, imagining space, imagining an energy circuit, imagining the palm that's soft, relaxing the neck, chest, and shoulders. First 5 tips is all about relaxation, finding softness and relaxation. This will help make your hand supple, which will in turn help make the vibrato more supple and give you more color, which will then in turn give you more variety in your sound. Okay, this workshop is about sound. Let's go into 9. Now we're going to get into more artistic complexities. Tip number 9, practicing different types of vibrato combined with different bow speeds. This is what I mentioned in the very top of the workshop. We can't create sound through vibrato alone. Sound comes from the right hand, the bow. So whatever we do with the bow can be flavored with the spice of your left hand. Yes, we were talking about the spice, but we cannot have spicy food without food. We can have lots of spice, but we need the food to have a tasty, spicy food, okay? So what do I mean by practicing different vibrato combinations versus with different bow speeds? We can, as an exercise, you may challenge yourself. Give me a number in the chat between 1 and 10. We're going to talk about speed. Give me a number between 1 and 10 in the chat. 6. Okay, great. So that's my speed. I'm going to choose a speed. Now, let's see. Let's try this finger. Okay, so it's between 1 and 10. 1 is this. Whoa. And my fastest will be, okay? So you chose 6. So for 6, here's my 6. Now, bow speed. Give me a bow speed between 1 and 10. Please type in the chat. 10 being fast, 1 being slow. Terry says 1. I love that one. I'm going to do that one. So 6 speed in the vibrato. Okay, so this will be, for my VIP students, everyone's seen me talk about the 1-minute bow. This will be the 1-minute bow plus a 6. Okay, now the trick is to see if I can make a beautiful sound, not an ugly sound. Okay, following along? You can try this with me. 6 on the vibrato speed and 1 in the bow. Make it a beautiful sound. Here we go. I'll change fingers for fun. Okay, the sound is quiet, but at least I'm trying, yeah? Does that make sense? Give me another challenge. Give me a different speed, 1 to 10. Let's try 9, okay? Really fast. Okay, Laurent says 9. Let's go really fast on the vibrato, okay? Give me a bow speed, please. 8 and 10. Okay, so I'll do 9. 9 and 9, all right? So 9 and 9. 9 on the vibrato speed and 9 on the fast. Let's see if this works. So very fast bow requires a very light pressure. So that means the contact point will have to move out. And I talk about this in my sound production tutorials, which are in the playlist. You will see them linked below or etc. 9 and 9, really fast. So let me do it on a scale. Okay, you can practice this at home. Here we go. So super motor fast bow. So it means light and contact point is further away. Does everyone agree that that sound is very unique? Heifetz, yeah, it sounds like Heifetz, exactly. So playing this game already challenges us to create such wide ranges in our sound palette just by combining a different speed of vibrato with a different speed of bow. So if you want to sound like Heifetz, try to figure out, is it a fast bow with a high motor vibrato? Do we want a mellow vibrato that's really slow on this end but really fast in the bow speed? For example, at the end of a phrase, if you want to start dying out, let's say this is the final note of a concerto. But what if the bow was slow and the vibrato was really fast? That's a completely different sound, isn't it? Yeah? So now you can see that vibrato helps color the sound that you want in your repertoire. You can start thinking about what the bow is doing and how you can color the sound that comes out of your bow. Okay, Wendy says we need to also create different speeds on the same bow. Yeah, great point. Inside of one single note, you can vary in one note. So you can start out. See that this is a fast speed on this, and this is a heavier bow pressure and faster speed. And then the bow slows down, and then now you can see my vibrato getting narrower and quicker. So we start with a wide and fast, and then heavy on the bow. See how wide that one is? Wide, yeah, amplitude of maybe 6 or 7. And flattened on the flesh. And then as the bow speed slows down, maybe I can vary the vibrato, as Wendy says. Now the vibrato is getting a little narrower. I can sense that my hand is tightening here in my golden horseshoe, so I'm going to loosen that. And I'm going to soften my thumb back here. Yes, and you see how that Daniel says color is influenced by playing closer to the bridge and fingerboard. Exactly. So this is, again, vibrato is not isolated from the other bow variables. They are coming. This is why my acronym for sound production includes V, vibrato, angle of the bow. You can't play a good sound with crooked bow. Pressure and point of contact, yeah, between bridge to fingerboard, and the speed. VAPPS, okay? Yes, thank you. Now, this is a great tip moving forward. Tip number 10, a vibrato is never the exact same speed or amplitude during a long note. So this goes back to the other tip, tip number 7 about listening. Listening and creating the nuance that you wish. Sibelius again. So if you look very carefully at what I'm doing, I start the note. There's actually probably no vibrato at the beginning of my note. And my bow at the very beginning of the note is quite slow. Slow. See what I did with my bow? Okay, so the bow is doing something, but the vibrato is also going to do something as well. Just in the first note of Sibelius Violin Concerto second movement. So one note can have a range just on its own. So let's take a look further. And it gets narrower at the end of the note, and then my bow gets a little lighter, right? I'm showing you a variety. Same thing here, starting with a low intensity and an increasing intensity, and that B flat is intense. Yeah. Do you see what I'm doing? The one note, even that E flat, can have a variety. If you think about it as using your voice, your vibrato and your bow is trying to emulate what you hear in your head. So if I want to express the E flat, if you notice how much air I sing on the E flat, I start with a slow amount of air in the E flat and then increase the E flat air. Something like this. If you want to recreate that with your bow and your vibrato, we may. See, I recreated what I hear in my head using the tools VAPPS. So you can start thinking about this, right? Playing with what you hear in the ear and how you can get it out of your vibrato and your bow. Let's move to tip number 11. I saw this on Susanna Klein's YouTube channel, okay? You may search Professor Susanna Klein. And this is on her YouTube channel. When I saw how she was teaching vibrato, very systematic. So when you want a wider amplitude, it's a great idea to open up the hand, almost like I think of like a flower. So this is, let's say, a tight orchid, no, rosebud, tight little rosebud that hasn't blossomed yet, and you very ripe. Do flowers ripen? Very open rose, okay? This is open up your rose. So if you want a very wide vibrato, let's do a fourth finger. I don't know. No, the fourth finger is very hard. Third finger. What we can do is feel the hand, especially the inside of the hand, is open. And you also will see that the fingers, yes, I tell everyone, my students, to have hand frame, but if you want a wide vibrato, go ahead and open that flower temporarily. So let's try it together. Here's my hand frame closed and normal, but opening out, see how that finger, sometimes I see people even go like this, like almost like a pointer finger to the sky. I don't necessarily go that far, but I have seen it in my colleagues, okay? If you allow, I don't want to say like a gun point out, but allow your hand to open like a flower. You will notice that you get more amplitude, you're getting wider vibrato, okay? Whether it's here or see that this is not a deliberate point your finger, but it's an opening of my hand. So you see how that hand opens, okay? Now, if you want a narrower vibrato, the rose will become more of a rosebud, okay? So if it's the end of a phrase, let's say I end on this note, and I want a very shimmer color. So see how the hand is a little bit more shy, polite looking? If I open it out, then I have the capability of widening it and slowing it down. But if I make it more like a rosebud, there's my narrow vibrato, my wide vibrato, narrow. Okay, just a little physical trick in the hand. Tip number 12. This is really actually very insightful. Playing your phrases and your repertoire senza vibrato first. This workshop is not solely about vibrato, it's about vibrato combined with sound. When you're able to listen to the sound that you're creating minus the vibrato, meaning you're just going to focus on what you're coloring using the bow, then you will hear, it's like a chef spicing and seasoning a dish. First you taste the dish. What spices does it need? It needs a bit of salt. It needs more pepper. It doesn't need any more pepper. It needs more oregano, okay? Only when you can taste the dish as it stands, then you can decide what spice to add. Some people will throw on oregano without tasting the dish, and already you killed the dish. So we have a bland, plain dish. So no vibrato first, okay? Okay, it's pure, it's plain. The pasta needs some seasoning, right? So now, using tip number 7, I believe, listening, what do I want to add to this dish? Okay, so this has no vibrato on this, but now I might introduce it on the D. You see what I did now with the D? Okay, I'm growing on the D. Both in the bow and the left hand. So watch carefully. Watch both my bow speed and watch the left hand intensity. So I'm gonna grow. There we go. Continuous vibrato. I'm trying for continuous vibrato. Okay, so now this vibrato, as you can tell, is a narrow one. Okay, and narrow. This is my choice of spice on the A. Now I have a double stop that I can practice continuous vibrato on. There. Now, you see, this is a little bit of a speed, I was say 6.5 or 7. 6.5 speed. And you see this finger is quite flat. Remember I said vary the surface of your finger? Yeah, this is flat. Here's a double stop for a continuous vibrato. There's another double stop that can produce a continuous vibrato. Do I want a skinny vibrato here? Or do I want a fatter? Do I want a wide? Too slow? Too active? Do you hear how I'm using my ears? I don't like that spice. I want more of this. I want more fat in my dish. Yeah? Does everyone not see that? You're the chef. You can decide the spices. And what's cool is that your dish won't taste the same as another person's dish. Who here has a favorite pasta sauce? And your pasta sauce tastes different from your friend's pasta sauce. Yeah? Everyone's pasta sauce tastes different. And that's the beauty of it. Your vibrato, your voice in your vibrato will be unique from the next person. But always aim for the most beautiful combination of spices and herbs and seasoning, okay? And that will come with you being discerning with this. That's tip number 7, I believe. Is it number? Yeah, listen. Before we answer questions, this is how I work inside of my VIP coaching program. We have a couple of you who've done my program, Romina, Laurence, who else is in here? Norland is here. Norland's currently in my class. Chris Wojan from Florida is currently in my class. Vita in San Francisco is currently in my class. So these people can attest that this class is pretty much how I teach. So if you've seen me teach before, I'm pretty much consistent. I just get quirkier over time. That's all. Okay? If you would like to work with me, you are welcome to book a call. There is a link I'm putting into the chat. If you would like to join my VIP coaching program, I do have 2 spots open. Okay, 2 spots that I can let new people in. I keep my classes pretty small so that you all get very personalized feedback and attention from me. So I work with very advanced violinists. I sometimes occasionally take intermediate or above, but ideally you will have your basics down or you would like to polish your basics. So again, if you want to consider working with me, I will be taking calls in the next week or so and admitting people into the program. We work every single week. We have class twice a week. We have group practice sessions, which I call Linja sessions. So you will learn how I structure my practice sessions. You will also learn how I use my practice framework called the detective, the scientist, and the athlete. We will also learn how to work on intonation, right, Chris? We work on that. We've Norland and I have worked on double harmonics inside of Ernst's Last Rose of Summer. Vita and I have been working on concertmaster solos, which went really well for Vita. So this is an opportunity for anyone who feels like they want to get ready for an audition or get into a master's program or doctoral program. I have students who come in from all over the world and professionals who come in for professional development. So if you feel like you would like my help, feel free to book a call. Okay, let me answer a few questions. How do we avoid playing sharp as we vibrato? Okay, this is in my 7 best vibrato exercises. What you're going to be doing is starting at pitch. You're using your ear, tip number 7, okay? Listen for the pitch you want, and you want to check, let's say this is on a D with the open string. You start at pitch with your finger in its proper positioning, and then you're going to pull the finger back below pitch. Now that is one complete oscillation. You practice that slowly. Often people will come into my class and I want to go, wow, 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 fast. And no. If you can't control that yet, back off in speed. So you play that slowly until you can control the pitch. And I have had someone come into my class and I could not hear the center of their pitch. So if you're not able to control the pitch at that speed and that amplitude, go slowly. Let's say it's E. At pitch, go below. Go back up without doing that. Okay, so using your ear and going slow enough so that your ear can track it. I had one student who was not able to track it fast enough, okay? I found my finger that vibrate sometimes are not anchored tight on the note itself. How do I make it better? Anchored. Well, you know what? That could be a matter of feeling like your fingers are heavy. And when they're heavy, they're relaxed. When they're relaxed, they almost feel like a boiled, mushy potato on the fingerboard. Yeah? So you're gonna almost feel like this finger pad is like a potato, like a soft boiled potato. So right now my hand feels quite soft. There's 3-4 potatoes here. Yeah, so these are potatoes are what you're gonna vibrate on. If you're having trouble feeling like they're anchored, Erica Ron was my teacher in my doctorate. She told me to think that each finger is almost like an anvil. They're very heavy. And when they're heavy, they don't do much, meaning that you're not forcing your fingers down with muscle effort. They literally relax and sit with gravity. David Ball, I am stocky and have thick build. Can you recommend a good warm-up as it takes me a few hours to get a loose and relaxed controlled vibrato? I would recommend the 7 vibrato exercises. I won't go through them now because I detail them in my vibrato tutorial. Basically, you're warming up again. The most important thing to do is warming up the last joint. And I do give those exercises. So take your time in that tutorial, go through each individually, and that should help. Hi Lynn, can you advise some exercises for resting shoulders? Neck, please, mine is so stiff. This is something that I talk about in a couple of my workshops called Preventing Injury for Violinists. I have an entire playlist. There's an entire series of tutorials on my YouTube channel dedicated to relaxation of all those muscles, okay? So, for example, the most important tip that I have to answer your question is to become more aware of your body. And in my VIP classes, we do a lot of breathing exercises and body awareness exercises. Yeah, Chris is nodding, yeah? Right, Chris, you know that. So we do a lot of awareness, starting even from the fingers and hands all the way to the neck muscles, to the back muscles, even as deep into the core, the pelvis, the solar plexus, the hips, and even all the way down to the soles of our feet. Being more aware of your body can help you gain more control of where you're holding tension, and then asking your brain to connect to that area and releasing it. You will become more aware of when you're doing that, when you're at rest. Right now, are you raising your shoulder? Probably not. If I asked you to raise your shoulder, I bet you could raise. If I asked you to lower your shoulder, lower it. You can do this while you're listening to me. But then you can actually go to your instrument and do the same. Lift your shoulder while you play. Relax it while you play. Lift it while you play. Relax it while you play. Now you're getting better and better at controlling this tension that you say is creeping into your body. Keep at it. Your brain will start to get faster. It's just neuroplasticity. You're training your brain to capture the impulses and the messages your muscles are doing without you realizing it. This is called increasing your body awareness. Preventing tension and preventing injury is about understanding your body and learning more about it and controlling it better. Denise, how do you know if you're an intermediate or advanced? Can you judge by repertoire? Yep, basically. And your technique, if your technique is solid or developing, depending on, like, let's say maybe Bruch violin concerto up is getting you into advanced, okay? Maybe if you're in Zeitz violin concerto, you're more intermediate. So about there. Margie, thanks for a wonderful session. You are welcome. Tom's iPhone 15 Pro, thank you for a wonderful and gourmet vibrato lesson. Yay, it was spicy and tasty, right? Spaghetti sauce? Yeah, pasta sauce? Jennifer Wong, thank you, Dr. Lynn. I have to leave. Oh, thank you. Clara, thank you. Great tips. Laurence, any tip on how to vibrate on artificial harmonics? Okay, this is a good one. You're going to make sure that your bass finger on the fundamental pitch is solid. And then the same principle applies. Let's say you're going to do a touch for harmonic. Okay, so this one will not work so well on a wrist-like motion, wrist vibrato. It just doesn't really work. So now we're going to have to get into the opening, as I mentioned earlier, opening of the chest. This is tip number 5, opening the chest. So now you can see that once you open this area, the anterior deltoid and the pectoral muscle here, then we have access to opening up this elbow. Okay, this is an extension. This is a flexion. You see how I'm pointing to my bicep? My bicep will allow an eccentric extension, opening, and the bicep will flex. Yeah, this is a flexion of the bicep. This will be the base of your vibrato. Now, if you have 2 fingers, one is a fundamental pitch, finger 1, and your artificial harmonic, you maintain this ratio faithfully, religiously, and do not move it. And as you can see, Okay, you see the theory behind this, right? Now apply it to the instrument. So touch 1, firm, touch 4. Okay? It's almost as if you're doing this. Now you see while I'm doing that, this, yes, see how I did this? Yeah? And this relates to one of my exercises on my YouTube channel called Wash the String. Wash the string. Okay, wash the string. 1 and 4, wash the string. Okay? So if you look really carefully, the trick is that my thumb acts as a touch point, and the 1 and the 4 remain equidistant, do not deviate, and they move together. You see that now? See how the thumb is soft? Tight thumb, I won't be able to do this. It's tightening my thumb now. A little bit more give in my thumb. So the 1 and 4, 1 and 4, 1 and 4 move together. Kind of like a, does that make sense? Am I making any sense? 1 and 4 move together like this over the fingerboard. Okay? Vibrato help for double stops. Same thing. The thing is, double stop vibrato gets a little bit more difficult because one finger has a capability of movement and range of motion, right? You can see how far I can go on the first finger. As soon as you add a second finger on a new string, let's say third finger, then it's like this finger prevents the other finger from going very far. But you're going to have to just accept the capability or the altered capability of putting 2 fingers down. It's kind of like, oh, you're my 3-legged race partner, but you have very short legs. Oh, I have to match to your stride, okay? If anyone competed in the 3-legged race with me, they would be very disappointed because I have the shortest legs possible, okay? Unfortunately, but this is the way it is for double stops. So you're going to do the same. You're going to practice the flexibility of your distal joint. And as you can see, it's not just a wrist vibrato. You see? I'm not cutting off the rest of my arm. I'm involving the entire arm. Watch. See how the ulna bone is now moving along with the ride, not frozen and isolation. Does that everyone see that difference? Yeah. This is just isolated as a wrist. This is now involving the whole arm. I'm going to loosen my chest and my shoulder. There. Just one isolation I can show you, right? One oscillation. And you can literally practice it one oscillation at a time. Okay? Okay, let's see. Thank you so much for the wonderful comments. Ching says that was very helpful, as I have trouble with pushing down harder and get tight versus what you just shared. Yeah, me too. I've struggled with a tight left hand as well. So thinking like you're, you know, when you sit in a chair or a couch, your whole body sinks into the couch. Your body becomes relaxed, and when your body becomes relaxed, it becomes very heavy. Any ballet dancer who partners someone who lifts them will tell you that. When the partner who's being lifted relaxes, they become very heavy. But when that partner holds themselves, they become very light. So think of your finger as the partner that becomes heavy. You're sinking into the couch, right? And your finger will sink into the couch of your fingerboard, almost as if I'm hanging from, let's see, hanging like a monkey from a tree. And then your fingers will hang from the fingerboard. Okay, and then you can start to feel the difference, okay, between tension, holding your finger onto the board, and just hanging from the fingerboard. Oh gosh, lots of messages to keep up with here. Woo! I'm gonna have to download this chat and read everything. Haley Gullion. Okay, I will speak to you very soon, Haley. I'm looking forward to speaking with you. Thank you so much for this workshop, Dr. Lynn. All the imagery used was incredibly helpful. Yes, thank you. My last knot of index finger always want to attach the neck in the first position. I think it's because I try to anchor the left hand in some place to feel safe, to know my position. So yes, that's very true. This is a vibrato essential. Vibrato, you have hand positioning, okay? Points of contact in violin playing. We've got the collarbone, which your wood will rest on. The wood goes on the bone. That's contact point number 1. Okay, boom. That's your first one. 2, your chin rest is going to contact the bone of your jaw. 2. Okay, now we're going to go to the hand. 3 is the side of your thumb Okay, and four is this side of the bass, as Yin was saying. Boom. 5 is your finger if you're playing a stop note or not an open string. Okay, when you vibrate, you are going to keep all the contact points except for this one. Can you see that? I can stick my finger in now. Yeah, you're going to release the side of that finger. So now my finger is still there. Now I've got range of motion. I can go this way, 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 this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. Wash the string. Okay. Geraldine, thank you for the wonderful workshop. Learned lots today and will be sure to apply it to my practice from now on. Jose Felix, thank you, Lynn. Very helpful. Best wishes. Thank you. Eric Penrose, thumb position for E string. How to keep the violin neck resting on it? Thumb position for E string. Normal. I wouldn't do anything fancy. I see this sometimes. Mistake. This is too low, unless you really need it for a chord, right? Just normal. So the contact point side of the thumb, there, and side of the bass knuckle here on the, there. Okay, normal. Hey, Paul in Vancouver, yay, Canadian. Do you find finger exercise spring gadgets useful? Per Nathan Cole. I don't have one, so therefore I've not tried it. I would say if you're using them, be judicious about how you use them. Do not risk injury. Yeah, be very, very careful. I don't know, so I can't comment. I wish I could. What I do find helpful is this exercise. Remember that vibrato, your sound, we want to develop your range and color in your sound. And the sound will be helped when your vibrato has range, and the range will come from the flexibility of this last distal joint, this last knuckle here. So when we're not playing the violin, you can start training the range of motion of your distal joint by this exercise. Okay, this requires no purchased gadgets. Okay, put your two fingers, your thumb and your finger together. You're just going to do this. You don't even need a violin. This is called the knuckle collapse, which I call the knuckle collapse exercise in my 7 best vibrato exercises tutorial on YouTube. You're just going to collapse your knuckle. You're encouraging the flexibility of that joint. You can do that in your spare time while you're sitting on a bus. You're waiting at the bank. Okay, you're bored. You do this with this one. Oh, this is a little stiffer. Oh, this one's stiffer for me. Okay, we do this one, Okay, and this one, for some reason, this one's very flexible. You'll be amazed at how different the fingers will be. This is my right. This is my left. Wait, which one's which? Okay, this is my violin hand. This is my bow hand. They're about the same. Wait, I'm getting. Oh, this one here is a little stiffer. Okay, probably because I've trained. This one, my right hand is very stiff comparatively, and then this one for sure. This one likes to go woo, and this one is a little less woo. Okay, so you can start doing that just to encourage that, and then if you want to bring it to the instrument, then you can do it to the instrument. Knuckle collapse. Okay, so it goes. Notice how I go from pitch and below pitch. Okay, so these are just simple exercises that can help you develop the range of flexibility in those joints. Okay, again, if you want to work with me privately, I am accepting 2 new spots into my VIP coaching program. You may book a call with me to chat about that. I'll send this now in the chat. All you need to do is just apply for a call, fill out the questions, and we can book a call. Haley, I know you're here. I'll speak to you very, very soon. Vita says, go get those spots. Go listen to Vita. Vita's the boss. Vita just kicked butt in her Concertmaster solos. We worked on Rimsky-Korsakov and Appalachian Spring, Copeland. And Vita was rocking it. Okay. Ching, you're welcome. Daniel, you're very welcome. Okay. So I would love to see you in my class, and it will be very fun. Okay, if you thought this was cool, my VIP class is even cooler. Okay, we get to hang out more than twice a week, 3 times a week with me, and that's what happens in my VIP. Okay, have a great day. Have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you in the next workshop. Go spread some love on the weekend, okay? Mwah. See you, everybody.